We Were Liars has just been released on Prime Video, and based on the novel by E. Lockhart, this story followed the third generation of the Sinclair family known as the Liars. Spread over the course of 2 summers, summer 16 and summer 17, we saw the 17th summer being focused around Cadence Sinclair's amnesia and the fact that she couldn't remember what happened in the build-up to the accident that caused it on the 16th summer. With an ending that had a real twist that I only saw coming moments before it, and with deeper themes being explored all throughout when it comes to generational trauma and the impact that it can have. Let's dive into the ending of this show, break it down, along with discussing that gut-punching twist that was actually right in front of us the whole time, and I'll tell you why. Here is We Were Liars ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The twist explained. Well, the twist was right under our nose the entire time. It was in the title. We were liars, not we are liars. I should have seen it all along. Past tense. All throughout this show, we saw that Cadence was struggling to remember what happened in the build-up to the accident that occurred when she was found on the beach at the end of summer 16. In summer 17, when she returned to Beachwood Island, the Liars were keeping what happened to her a secret, because every time she found out what happened, she'd have an episode, wake up, and no longer remember. So they thought it was for the best if she didn't know. However, as she slowly started to unravel more information herself, we found out that the Liars decided to burn the mansion down in summer 16 as a symbolic way of resetting the family and the toxic values and beliefs that they had. Meaning that they were hoping that the family would quite literally need to build their way back up from the ground. However, the arson that they committed all went wrong. They were supposed to start the fire from the attic at midnight, but that wasn't the case. Cadence started the fire on the ground floor, which meant that the fire spread fast and trapped Johnny and Mirren on the upper levels. And because Cadence was taking a while to get to Gat, who was waiting on the boat, he went inside to see if she needed saving. Something which was actually foreshadowed earlier on in the show when Mirren said how Gat would always go running back to Cadence. With Katie being outside of the property, the fire ended up reacting with the gas lines in the house, and it ultimately caused the entire property to explode, meaning that the force of it pushed Cadence into the water, and it meant that the rest of the Liars ended up perishing inside of the fire. They never made it out. So this meant that everything that Cadence had seen during summer 17 was a figment of her imagination, a hallucination due to the amount of medication that she was on and the ghosts of the people that she cared about most. This is why Cadence wasn't allowed on her phone, because she'd see that people were paying tributes and she'd find out that they'd actually died. And it was also why she kept saying that they didn't reach out to her for a year, because they were obviously dead. But she was able to see them on Beachwood Island because they said that with amnesia, by going back to where the accident could happen, it could spark memories, hence why she saw them. This is also why the house looked completely different to the year before, because she burned it. What the twist of the series showed us was that the reset that Cadence wanted to happen did actually end up being the case, as the fire did reset the values of the family to a certain degree. And through the loss, it brought the 3 sisters that once resented each other closer together. But sadly, it took them losing the people that they cared about most for that to happen. I thought Mirren's ending was actually one of the most heartbreaking ones. She spent the entirety of her life feeling like she was invisible and was the runt of the litter when it came to the family because she wasn't the first of any kind. However, in her final moments, she saw that her mother actually restored her painting that she broke, which was almost like when Bess's mother would allow the children to wear the black pearls as a way of saying, I love you. And this ultimately allowed Mirren to actually feel loved before she died. Plus, it also took her dying for her to finally be seen, as her art was displayed inside of the art gallery. This twist was something that I didn't see coming for the most part of the show, and I was certain that Cadence was going to have been attacked by somebody, so I spent a lot of the time looking for sketchy behavior and characteristics in characters, which in this story is a lot. But it turned out to be completely different, and it really did catch me off guard. The Liars were dead all along. The ending explained. When it came to the ending of this show, we saw that Harris, using the power that he had and the ability of being able to sell a strong narrative, he used those abilities to sell the story that the house fire was started by an employee that stored gas in an improper way, even though he fully knew that the Liars were the ones that started the fire. This was something that put Cadence in a dilemma because she despised her grandfather's behaviors and beliefs, but she knew that if she didn't want to wind up in jail, she'd have to quite literally be a liar and stand by the story that he told. Even though it meant that the likes of Gat's mother would never get the truth about what happened to her son, so she was morally conflicted. Cadence was given those black pearls by her grandfather, the pearls that were deemed to be the noose around the family because the second generation were constantly fighting over them. However, she got her own set of pearls, a set of pearls that mattered to her, and it was the ones that Gat gifted her for her birthday the year before that she never opened. With her knowing full well what happened on the night of the fire now, she was left with the moral dilemma of what to do. Tell the truth to the reporter or be the liar that she gave herself the name of. When faced with the question about her family, she chose not to answer it, instead running off to the beach, getting on a boat and riding off, like she used to do with Gat. She said that she was weak and complicit, that she now knew the loss of great loves and how she was once a Sinclair. As she said that, she threw the black pearls into the sea, showing that she no longer abided by the Sinclairianisms that made the family the toxic cesspit that caused the liars to want to burn the family to the ground. Her grandfather had no hold over her because she didn't value the wealth and materialistic things like the generation before did. I think the ending was symbolic of Cadence still obviously being a part of the family, but her telling her own story and deciding the direction that it would go in, rather than her grandfather waving authority over her. It also seemed like she had the support of her mother too, who for the first time was honest with her, in saying that her relationship fell apart with Cadence's father because she was having an affair, and she didn't tell her because she feared that she'd choose to be with her father instead of her. We saw that Harris had maybe changed his ways, even allowing the likes of Ed back into Carrie's life, but I don't think he actually had changed. I think Harris might have known that Ed was somebody that Carrie truly cared about, and he might have viewed him as a way of keeping her off the pills, which we saw wasn't actually the case. When addressing the deep-rooted racism that Harris had within him and the change that he showed at the end, I don't think he was a changed man. Like Gat said earlier on in the show, this man has known me for years, and he still hates me. Harris wasn't a nice man in the slightest, and offering her to be in the photo was something that I don't think was sincere either. He even turned his nose up at the beads that Gat got Cadence right at the end. When it came to the final scene in the show, we saw that Carrie went back into the house, took some pills, which showed that she was no longer sober, and she ended up seeing the ghost of Johnny in the kitchen. This is something that most definitely sets up the prequel to the show, A Family of Liars. This is the story which will connect to the conversation that Carrie and Bess had when they mentioned that they felt like they were being punished for what they did in a summer when they were younger. There is a novel that's out there, so I won't spoil what happens, but I think we'll definitely see the prequel show focusing on the generation before. My review of the show. I thought this was a really solid TV series. There were so many different elements that I liked about it. I thought the first episode did a really good job at laying down the foundations, but also teasing that accident by having every main transition being a flashback of Cadence lying on the beach. Then, as the story slowly progressed, having it go from being this whodunit to this reveal of it all being the liars was something that left me with my jaw on the floor. I'd say I even got a bit emotional when I realized that the three of them weren't making it out of the house. The individual goodbye speeches that the ghosts also had me welling up a bit because that sense of loss really did carry through. The cattiness in the show was something that was also truly felt. The way that the three sisters would act was both comical, ridiculous, and utterly toxic, all at the same time. American royalty was how it was described, and it did genuinely feel like that when watching it. The lack of regard for the lives of the people that they cared for, but the value of the wealth that they were set to inherit was front and center, and it became frustrating just watching that for 8 episodes. So I don't know how people actually live like that. In terms of the performances, I don't think they could have actually picked a better group of people for the Liars. The balance between them all was just so perfectly weighed out, and the chemistry that they all had was electric. I bought that they had all grown up with each other, and like they truly were the best of friends. One thing that I think definitely deserves to be spoken about in this show is the soundtrack that was selected. It was simply perfect. All of the music that was selected really suited the emotions that the showrunners wanted to draw out of us, whether it be melancholic, upsetting, or joyous and exciting. They picked well, and it all suited the type of show that it was as well. Honestly, I really recommend watching this show. There haven't really been that many great TV series that have dropped all of their episodes at once recently, but this is one that I'd say is most definitely worth a watch, even if you now know the twist. So, there you have it. We Were Liars ending explained.